What happens when America's most beloved movie star walks straight into a verbal ambush on live television? It was supposed to be a friendly interview, a simple morning chat between Julia Roberts and the View panel. But the moment she sat down, it became something else entirely. Within minutes, smiles turned to smirks, questions turned to attacks, and Julia found herself in the crosshairs of Joy Behar, a host who didn't want conversation. She wanted confrontation. By the end, it wasn't an interview. It was one of the most shocking clashes daytime TV had ever seen. Trust me, this talk show won't disappoint you. It'll be worth every second of your time. The lights flared bright as Julia Roberts stepped onto the view stage, her emerald dress catching the glare like it had been made for it. The crowd roared, some even standing. Julia waved, laughing that familiar movie star laugh that had sold out theaters for decades. But while Whoopi, Sunny, and Sarah smiled wide, Joy Behar didn't move. She sat back in her chair, arms crossed, eyes cold. Her smile never came. It wasn't admiration, it was a dare. "Julia, welcome back," Whoopi began warmly. "It's always great to have you here." Julia's charm didn't falter. "Thank you. It's nice to be here again. I always feel so at home with you guys." "Home," Joy muttered, loud enough for the mic to catch. "Must be nice having about 6 of those." The audience gave a nervous laugh. Julia turned her head, that Hollywood smile flickering for just a second. "Well, you can only live in one at a time, Joy," she said smoothly. "I learned that the hard way." Joy leaned forward, grinning. "Oh, I'm sure you did. Which one are you calling home this week? The Malibu mansion or the ranch in New Mexico?" The crowd tensed. Whoopi tried to steer it back. "So, Julia, tell us about your new movie." But Joy cut right in. "No, I'm genuinely curious. Do you ever get tired of playing yourself?" The charming smile, the quirky laugh, the girl who saves the world with one wink. It's the same Julia every time. Different movie, same you. Julia's smile stiffened. "I like to think of it as consistency," Joy smirked. "I call it recycling." Whoopi's eyes widened. "Joy!" Julia leaned forward slightly, her voice calm but edged. "You know, it's funny. Some people recycle old insults too." The audience broke into soft gasps. Joy didn't back off. She laughed, that sharp, cutting sound that made even the crew shift uncomfortably. "Oh, come on, Julia. Don't get sensitive. You've made a career off being America's sweetheart. I just wonder, what happens when America gets tired of sweet?" Julia's tone turned cool. "Then they can switch channels. But I think most people prefer kindness to bitterness." Joy tilted her head, her tone dripping with mock sincerity. "Kindness? Honey, in Hollywood that's called PR training." The air thickened. Sunny looked down at her notes. Whoopi sighed, already regretting the booking. Julia crossed her arms now, her voice low and steady. "You know, Joy, I thought this was supposed to be an interview, not an interrogation." "Same difference," Joy said, "except mine actually gets honest answers." Julia let out a soft laugh, the kind that hides a warning. "If honesty is what you want, maybe start by asking questions that don't sound like personal attacks." Joy shrugged. "Personal? Please? I'm just saying, some of us have to work our way up. Others just smile their way there that hit." Julia's eyes narrowed for the first time. "You think a smile got me here? Try decades of work, rejection, and earning respect one project at a time. But I guess you wouldn't know much about earning people's affection, would you?" The studio went silent. Whoopi's mouth fell open. Even Joy froze for half a second before recovering. "Oh, so the gloves are off," she said, laughing tightly. "Good." "I was getting bored." Julia leaned back, calm again, but her stare didn't waver. "Then you're welcome." "Consider yourself entertained." Joy leaned forward, elbows on the table, the grin on her face sharp enough to cut glass. "You've built a brand, Julia. America's unbreakable sweetheart. But tell me, when was the last time you were actually real?" Julia's fingers tightened slightly around her coffee mug. She kept her tone light, but her eyes didn't move. "Real enough to sit here while you turn honesty into entertainment." Joy smirked, amused. "Entertainment? Honey, I call it honesty with a little caffeine. Maybe you should try it sometime." Julia exhaled slowly, fighting the urge to roll her eyes. Or maybe you should try empathy. I hear it's good for ratings." The crowd laughed nervously, unsure whose side they were on. Joy didn't blink. "Empathy doesn't sell, sweetheart. Authenticity does. That's why people come to watch me. They want the truth, not a smile that's been rehearsed since the Clinton era." Julia tilted her head, the calm starting to crack. "You mean the truth as you see it? Loud, rude, and broadcast live?" Joy's grin widened. "No, I mean the kind that makes people squirm. You've been playing pretend for 30 years, Julia. Maybe it's time we see the real person hiding behind that Oscar." Julia's laugh was quick but cold. "I didn't realize you were auditioning for TMZ, Joy." "Please," Joy shot back. "They couldn't afford me." The room tensed again. Whoopi shifted in her seat. "Ladies," she began, but Joy cut her off without a glance. "Let's face it," Joy said, turning to Julia like a prosecutor cornering a witness. "You've lived the dream. Money, fame, magazine covers. But I'm curious. When was the last time you had to fight for something that wasn't a film role?" Julia met her stare, voice lower now. "You don't know my fights, Joy." Joy leaned in, eyes gleaming. "That's the point. No one does. Because you've built this perfect little wall of smiles and silk dresses, and God forbid the world sees what's actually behind it." Julia's response came slow, deliberate. Maybe the world doesn't need another celebrity meltdown. Maybe they just want someone who still believes in Grace. Joy's laugh was sharp. "Grace? Honey, that's just PR with lipstick." Julia smiled faintly, but her voice turned razor thin. "And you're mistaking cruelty for courage." Joy raised an eyebrow. "Maybe I'm just holding up a mirror." Julia didn't flinch. "No, you're throwing stones and calling them reflections." The audience fell silent. The kind of silence that doesn't breathe. The smile was gone now, replaced by something much heavier in Julia's expression. A mix of exhaustion and defiance. Joy didn't waste a second before going for the throat. "You know what I've always wondered, Julia?" she said, voice low but dripping with venom. "What does struggle look like to someone who's been adored her whole life? Born lucky, handed fame, showered with love. Do you even know what pain feels like? Or do you just study it between takes?" Julia froze. The crowd murmured. Whoopi glanced toward the control booth, signaling for someone to roll a commercial, but the director hesitated. This was gold. Julia's eyes sharpened, her voice steady but cutting. "You think pain only counts if it's public, Joy? Some of us bleed in private. Not everything has to be a headline to be real." Joy smirked, like she'd been waiting for that answer. "Private pain, huh? That's convenient. It keeps the image clean, doesn't it?" Julia leaned in slightly, calm but dangerous. "No, it keeps the circus out of my life. A concept you might struggle with." That line hit, and the crowd reacted. Joy's smirk faltered for half a second, but she recovered fast. "Oh, don't play noble with me," she said, eyes narrowing. "You've built a career on fairy tales, and now you're selling yourself as the wise survivor. But let's get real. 3 weddings, that's quite a resume for a woman who's supposed to have love all figured out." The air went electric. Even Sonny's jaw dropped. Julia's control cracked for the first time. "That's below the belt, Joy." Joy shrugged. "No, sweetheart. That's reality." Julia's tone turned sharp. "Reality isn't digging through someone's personal life to get a reaction. That's not honesty, it's cruelty." Joy leaned back, satisfied. "Cruel? Please, you're an actress. You should be used to tough lines." The room pulsed with tension. Whoopi tried to jump in. "Okay, we're going to take a quick break." But Joy cut her off with a dismissive wave. "No, Whoopi. I think America deserves to hear the real Julia for once." Julia exhaled, her voice trembling now. Not from fear, but fury barely contained. "You don't want the real me, Joy. You want a headline." Joy smiled, victorious. "Then give me one." The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush the air itself. Even the audience didn't know whether to clap or silent. Sunny shifted in her seat, her voice breaking the tension just a little. "Okay," she said gently. "Maybe we should move on to something lighter." "Julia, your new film." But Julia didn't answer right away. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, the knuckles pale. She stared at the table for a moment, gathering herself, then whispered, barely loud enough for the mic to catch it, "You can survive a bad role, but not a bad faith conversation." The words hit the panel like a quiet bomb. Sunny looked down. Whoopi sighed. Joy crossed her arms, pretending not to hear, but the faint smirk on her face said otherwise. When Julia finally looked up again, her voice was steady but tired. "You know, Joy, I've done interviews for 30 years. Some tough, some easy. But this one," she let out a slow breath, "this feels less like a conversation and more like a test I didn't sign up for." Joy tilted her head, her smile tight, amused. "Oh, don't take it personally, darling. I tease because I care." Julia met her eyes. And for the first time that morning, there was no smile, just clarity. "No," she said quietly. "You tease because you can't stand sincerity." Joy's smirk froze. She tried to laugh it off, but nothing came out. Joy leaned in again, her tone turning colder, more deliberate, every word chosen like a weapon. "You know what it is, Julia. You're fake. Everything about you is polished plastic. The smile, the charm, the perfect answers. It's all performance. And people eat it up because it's easier than facing reality." Julia's laugh came out sharp, brittle. "If decency looks fake to you, Joy, maybe the problem isn't me." But Joy wasn't backing down. "Oh, please, you've fooled people for decades. You've sold this act of the sweet, relatable movie star while living like royalty. Don't pretend you understand ordinary people." Julia's eyes hardened. "And yet those so-called ordinary people are the reason I'm still here. Maybe instead of insulting them, or me, you should ask yourself why cruelty needs an audience to feel real." Joy smirked, but her eyes flickered for just a second. The studio had gone dead quiet. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate, as if afraid of capturing something too raw. Whoopi glanced toward the control room again, whispering, "Cut to break, please." But no one moved. Julia leaned back slowly, still locked on Joy. Her voice softened, but hit harder than ever. "You think being cynical makes you honest. It doesn't. It just makes you sad." Joy's lips parted, ready to fire back, but nothing came out. For once, she looked like the one caught off guard. Julia's voice dropped an octave, stripped of warmth. "You're not interviewing me, Joy. You're attacking me." Joy folded her arms, defensive but defiant. "Oh, don't be dramatic. I'm doing my job." Julia's tone turned razor sharp. "No, you're feeding off humiliation and calling it journalism." The audience made a collective sound, half gasp, half stunned silence. Joy leaned in, her voice rising. "I ask the questions people are thinking. If you can't handle them, that's not my problem." Julia didn't blink. "There's a difference between asking and ambushing." "You crossed that line 20 minutes ago," Joy laughed, a bitter, nervous sound. "Oh, please. You're acting like a victim. You're too smart for that." Julia tilted her head slightly, eyes unblinking. "No, Joy. I'm calling out what everyone else is too afraid to say." Joy scoffed. "Afraid? Of me?" And that's when Julia said it. Calm, clear, deadly. "You're a bully, Joy." The word landed like a thunderclap. The air seemed to leave the room. Joy's face twitched. First surprise, then anger, then something that almost looked like fear. "I'm not a bully," she shot back, her voice cracking for the first time all morning. Julia didn't move. "Then why does everyone here look scared to stop you?" Whoopi froze. Sunny looked down at her notes. Even the audience didn't dare make a sound. The cameras zoomed in on Julia's face, steady, cold, unflinching. Joy's mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time, she looked small, cornered by the truth. Julia leaned back slightly, her tone soft but merciless. "You confuse cruelty with honesty, power with courage. But you're not fearless, Joy. You're just used to nobody standing up to you." Joy's jaw clenched. Joy leaned across the table, voice rising, defiance burning in her eyes. "This is reality, Julia. Someone finally calling you out." Julia didn't flinch. Her tone was calm, but there was fire behind it. "No, Joy. This isn't reality. This is cruelty. someone mistaking venom for truth. And then, without breaking eye contact, Julia reached up and unclipped her mic. The tiny click echoed across the studio like a gunshot. Every camera operator froze. The audience gasped. Even the sound techs hesitated to breathe. Joy blinked, taken off guard. "What are you doing?" Julia stood, slow and deliberate, her voice steady. "You wanted the real Julia Roberts? She's the one walking away from poison." Joy shot up too, voice cracking. "Don't walk away from me." Julia turned just long enough to meet her eyes one last time. "Watch me." She placed the mic on the table, gave a small nod to Whoopi, and walked off the set. No theatrics, no tears, just quiet finality. Each step echoed louder than Joy's last word. By the time Julia disappeared behind the stage curtain, the entire studio was dead silent. Joy was left standing under the harsh lights, breathing hard, her face frozen somewhere between anger and disbelief. It wasn't just an exit, it was a line drawn and crossed. Julia Roberts didn't storm off for drama, she walked off for dignity. In a world where cruelty gets called honesty, she reminded everyone that grace still has power. What do you think? Did Julia do the right thing by standing up to Joy Behar? Or did Joy just ask the tough questions? Tell us in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more explosive celebrity moments that'll leave you speechless.